Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, tmosso@the1916company.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Email us directly, tmosso@the1916company.com for pricing. Today, we discuss a modern classic launched back in 2006. At the time, the Richard Mille RM010 was the bigger version of the original RM5, but unlike the rather niche RM5, the RM010 has gone the distance. Seen on countless wrists of beautiful people the world over, this is the millionaire's handshake. So, let's take a look at its titanium case, which is grade 5 titanium. Measures 40 millimeters across, not including the crown. It's actually thinner than you think at 13.2 millimeters thick, and then from lug to lug, the total distance across the case is 48.1 millimeters. Being made entirely of rubber, titanium inside and out, and sapphire, it's almost toy-like in its lightness. Now take a look at the underside of the case. You see how it's curved? The ergonomics, outstanding. The watch wears well on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, and I think it could wear well on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. If your wrist is smaller than that, try to find an RM5. Now, it is very sheer and abrupt in its flank profile, but it will fit underneath the jacket cuff. You can see from over the top, the edges of the case are not out over the edge of my wrist. Down the barrel one more time. The strap's proprietary. You can see it's designed to match the swell of the lugs when viewed from the top, and also the taper of the profile when viewed from the side. There's also a little bit of evacuation in the edge that visually continues the hollows of the case flank, plus a few vents built in to vent the wrist on a hot day. The strap, and I actually endorse this, it's fitted to the case using screws, so a very secure juncture. You don't have to worry about it pulling out the way sometimes we will find spring bars are wont to do. So this is a very secure watch when it's on the wrist. It uses the GNF Chatelain leaf spring double deployant system. We've seen it on all sorts of brands, typically on RM, but also on MB&F and others. There's a leaf spring inside, and so when you bend the folding part of the clasp over the chassis past a certain point, the leaf spring snaps shut. So when it's closed, even though it doesn't have release triggers, it's very secure. And as you open it, it pops back open. You can see that the buckle is designed with a combination of satin finish and polish, but also media blast, and it has little symbolic spline screw motifs on each side. And you can see those spline screws, just like the system used to assemble the case. If you look closely, you can see that the buckle is held onto the strap using conventional flathead screws. The spline screws assemble everything here like a sandwich through the case with their columns visible in profile, the little channels that feature the screws. The watch is 50 meters water resistant, which RM apparently has approved for surface swimming. I usually say when you've got a push down crown in 50 meters, you shouldn't be swimming, but RM has said swimming's fine. Okay, it takes your chances. I recommend keeping a watch like this with a push down crown and 50 meters high and dry. Still, RM is the manufacturer. We have a combination of elements on the dial, a carbon fiber flange that holds the individual hour indices, titanium faceplate, a rubber shoulder for a crown which features media blasting, and then a sapphire over a sapphire. So you could see that the numerals, as well as the frame for the date, they're actually printed on a secondary sapphire that sits over the dial below the primary sapphire that covers the works. We'll do a quick lume shot so you can see the watch in the dark. There is no shortage of lumen. You'll note all three hands are lumed, including the second hand. The watch features a Vaucher movement base that's been heavily modified for Richard Mille. We do have a stop seconds function. There is a skeletonized date disc that sits over a sort of backlit white panel within its aperture, and there is a quick set for the dates. You can rapidly cycle the date if you wish to do so. It's very difficult to achieve water resistance with a non-round sapphire. When you add camber or curvature, it becomes even tougher. So I really admire the RM watchmakers and engineers who made this arrangement work. This is not a simple watch to construct. You can see the same is true of the crystal over the case back. The movement, though Vaucher-based, is very heavily modified. The biggest modification is that it's fully skeletonized and made of titanium, which reduces its mass. You can also see that it features a variable geometry winding rotor with these two white gold masses that move in and out. The Richard Mille watchmaker can adjust that to make it a more vigorous and efficient winder if you're very inactive and you work at a desk like I do, or if you're extremely active, then he can change the polar moment or turning force to make the winding system less vigorous and less likely to wind actively so as not to wear it down as much. It is a twin barrel arrangement for a super strong flow of torque to the escapement, 55 hours of automatic winding power reserve, 32 pivot joules. It is a 5-position adjusted movement, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. You can see that not only are these bridges and plates made of titanium, but they're skeletonized and evacuated, so you can see the mechanisms and even the mainsprings straight through. It's a 4 hertz beat rate, and then you can see the little Vaucher star on the base plate. Vaucher was behind this movement. And we have a free sprung balance to make it tougher against shock and also a more precise movement to regulate finely. It's easier to do that with the variable inertia bolts on the balance rim. You can see they call this the RM010, and it's fixed to the case using 4 spline screws. There's also a little rubber shock absorber between the case and the movement itself, so lots to love on that front. And you'll note the use of clear sapphires, which are more in keeping with the techno-industrial aesthetic of the watch than would be synthetic rubies. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916 Company for purchase and pricing details.